Justin Hayes had spent so many years on American highways that the road no longer felt like a place he traveled through. It felt like the only place he existed. 20 years hauling freight across Texas, Colorado, Kansas, Nebraska, and half the country had turned his life into a routine of diesel fuel, truck stop coffee, cold mornings, and sleeping in the narrow cabin of his black Peterbilt. Most drivers talked too much. Justin preferred silence. Silence was safe. Silence never asked questions he didn't want to answer. At 42, Justin had the kind of reputation younger truckers respected automatically. He was calm during storms, never late on deliveries, and somehow always knew which roads to avoid before traffic reports even warned about them. Other drivers called him Ghost because he came and went quietly, never staying long enough to make friends. Justin liked it that way. Friends became attachments. Attachments became problems. The first time he saw Hallen Brooks was outside a warehouse in Amarillo, Texas. Justin had just finished signing paperwork when shouting echoed across the loading yard. A bright blue Freightliner was struggling to reverse into one of the docks, while two warehouse workers yelled conflicting directions. The trailer kept angling too hard to the left. One more mistake, and the rookie would scrape the side of another truck. Justin leaned against his Peterbilt for a moment, watching. The younger driver looked stressed already. Blonde hair under a backwards cap. Lean muscular build. Tattoos visible under rolled sleeves. Probably early 30s. Definitely inexperienced. One worker slapped the side of the trailer angrily. "Come on, man. You trying to destroy the whole damn dock." The younger driver rolled down the window, looking frustrated. "Maybe if one of you stopped screaming for 5 seconds." Justin sighed quietly and pushed himself off the truck. He walked across the yard without saying much, then lifted one hand toward the driver. "Straighten your wheel first. Slow. You're overcorrecting." The younger man blinked. "You actually know what you're doing?" Justin stared at him. "You want help or not?" That shut him up. For the next 2 minutes, Justin guided him carefully backward until the trailer slid perfectly into place. Clean. Smooth. No damage. The younger driver let out a breath and climbed down from the cab. Up close, he looked tired beneath the cocky attitude. His eyes had dark circles under them, like he hadn't slept properly in days. "Well," he said with a crooked grin, "guess you just saved my career." Justin shrugged. "Wouldn't go that far. I'm Hallen." "Justin." Hallen looked at the black Peterbilt parked nearby. "That yours?" Justin nodded once. "Damn. That thing looks like it transports dead bodies for the mafia." Justin almost smiled. Almost. Hallen noticed it anyway. "There it is. Tiny smile. I knew you had emotion somewhere in there." Justin turned and walked away before the conversation got any longer. But as he climbed into his truck, he caught himself glancing once in the mirror. Hallen was still standing there watching him leave. After Amarillo, Justin expected never to see the younger man again. That was how trucking worked. Thousands of drivers crossing thousands of miles. People came and went like radio static. Except Hallen kept appearing. 3 days later, Justin stopped at a truck stop outside Wichita, Kansas, and spotted the same blue Freightliner parked 2 rows down. Hallen was inside the diner arguing with a waitress because she refused to serve breakfast after 11. "You're telling me eggs magically disappear at lunchtime?" "They stop existing after 11:30. The waitress answered dryly. Justin walked past them toward the counter. Hallen noticed him immediately. "Ghost driver." Justin closed his eyes briefly. "Don't call me that." "Oh, so you do remember me." "Hard not to. You nearly destroyed a loading dock." Hallen laughed loudly enough for several people to turn around. Justin ordered coffee and eggs, planning to sit alone like always. But when he carried his plate toward an empty booth, he found Hallen already sliding into the opposite seat. "You mind?" "Yes." Hallen grinned. "Good thing I'm already sitting." Justin should have told him to leave. Instead, he started eating while Hallen kept talking about terrible dispatchers, broken trailer lights, and getting lost outside Oklahoma City because his GPS tried sending him through a residential neighborhood. "You ever get used to this job?" Hallen asked eventually. Justin cut into his eggs slowly. "You learn not to fight it." "That sounds depressing as hell." "It's trucking, not therapy." Hallen laughed again. Justin noticed several older truckers nearby, staring at them briefly before returning to their meals. He immediately leaned back slightly, creating more distance between himself and Hallen without even thinking about it. Hallen noticed that too. The younger man's smile faded just a little. After that, they kept crossing paths more often. A fuel station in Oklahoma, a snowy rest area in Colorado, a shipping yard outside Denver. Sometimes they only exchanged quick greetings. Other times they talked over CB radio for hours during overnight drives. Justin hated how quickly those conversations became part of his routine. Around midnight somewhere in Nebraska, Hallen's voice crackled through the radio speaker. "You still awake, Ghost?" "Justin sighed. You really committed to that nickname. You never gave me permission to use your real one." "You already know my real one." "Yeah, but Ghost annoys you more." Justin shook his head while staring at the empty highway ahead. "What do you want?" "Need help staying awake." "Coffee." "Already had 3. "Then stop talking and focus on driving." A pause. Then softer this time. "You always this grumpy, or only with me?" Justin didn't answer right away. The truth was he hadn't talked to anyone this consistently in years. Most people exhausted him after 10 minutes. Hallen somehow didn't. "You still behind me?" Justin asked. "About 2 miles. Road gets icy near mile marker 184. Slow down when you hit the curve." Another pause. Then quietly, "See? You care." Justin immediately regretted asking. A week later, Justin pulled into a rest stop outside Lincoln just before dawn. Snow covered the parking lot in dirty gray slush. Most trucks were dark and silent, except one blue Freightliner parked crooked near the edge. Justin recognized it instantly. He noticed the engine still running. That bothered him. After several seconds of debating with himself, Justin climbed down from his truck and walked across the freezing lot. He knocked once against the Freightliner door. No response. Inside, Hallen was asleep behind the steering wheel. Not normal sleep either. Exhausted sleep. The kind that happened after pushing too many miles without proper rest. Justin frowned. Trucking companies loved squeezing every possible hour from younger drivers. Rookies especially made stupid choices trying to prove themselves. Hallen looked younger asleep. Less loud. Less defensive. Justin glanced around the empty parking lot before pulling off his heavy winter jacket and draping it carefully over Hallen's shoulders through the open side window. The younger man shifted slightly, but didn't wake. Justin stepped back and lit a cigarette near his own truck. He stayed there watching the sunrise creep slowly over the snowy highway. About 40 minutes later, the Freightliner door opened. Hallen climbed down wearing Justin's oversized jacket. His blonde hair was messy from sleep, and for once he looked too tired to joke immediately. "You seriously sat out here all morning?" he asked. Justin shrugged. "You were dead asleep. I pulled over for 10 minutes. You were out for almost an hour." Hallen rubbed one hand across his face. "Dispatch keeps changing delivery times. Then tell dispatch to screw themselves. Easy for you to say. You've got seniority." Justin flicked ash onto the pavement. "No load's worth killing yourself over." Hallen looked down at the jacket around his shoulders. His expression softened in a way Justin didn't expect. "Why are you always looking out for me?" The question hit harder than it should have. Justin opened his mouth, then closed it again. Because honestly, he didn't know. Maybe it was because Hallen reminded him of himself 20 years ago. Maybe it was because beneath all the joking and attitude, the younger man looked lonely in a way Justin understood too well. Or maybe it was something far more dangerous than that. Justin took the jacket back carefully. "You should get moving if you want to make that delivery." Hallen nodded slowly, but before climbing back into his truck, he looked at Justin for a long moment like he wanted to say something else. That night, both trucks rolled westbound through dark Nebraska highways while cold rain hammered the roads. Justin drove in silence until the CB radio crackled softly. "You awake?" Hallen asked. Obviously, for a few minutes, neither of them spoke. Only static and engine noise filled the silence between them. Then Hallen's voice came again, quieter this time. "You ever get tired of being alone out here?" Justin's hands tightened around the steering wheel. The question stayed suspended inside the cabin like something alive. For a second, he almost answered honestly. But before he could speak, heavy static suddenly swallowed the signal hole, and the radio went dead. The hailstorm hit so fast, it didn't even feel real at first. 1 minute, Justin Hayes was driving through the Colorado mountains under cold, gray skies, listening to low country music through the speakers of his Peterbilt. The next, the windshield exploded with ice, so hard it sounded like someone dumping buckets of gravel onto the truck. The radio immediately came alive with panicked voices. Jesus Christ. I can't see a damn thing. Slow down. Slow down. Justin tightened both hands on the wheel as hail slammed against the hood and mirrors. Visibility dropped almost instantly. The road ahead disappeared behind a wall of white ice and freezing rain. Trucks began braking all around him, red lights glowing through the storm like blurred warnings. Then the CB radio cracked again. Justin. Hallen. Justin sat up straighter immediately. The younger driver's voice sounded wrong. Tight. Breathless. I'm sliding. Static interrupted him. Justin grabbed the radio. Hallen, where are you? A few seconds passed before Hallen answered again, louder this time. Black Ridge curve. I can't hold the trailer. Justin's stomach dropped. He knew that curve. Sharp cliff edge on one side. Steel barrier on the other. Dangerous even in normal weather. Justin pushed his Peterbilt forward carefully through the storm. Hail hammered the roof so violently it drowned out almost everything else. He could barely see 20 feet ahead, but then flashing hazard lights appeared through the white chaos. Blue Freightliner. The truck sat crooked across part of the icy road. Trailer tilted dangerously near the guardrail. Hallen, Justin shouted into the radio. Don't move the wheel. The younger man sounded panicked now. The brakes locked up. Justin quickly pulled his own truck sideways behind the Freightliner, partially blocking the road to stop incoming traffic. Horns blasted somewhere behind him, but he ignored them. He threw on his hazard lights, grabbed his heavy coat, and jumped out into the storm. Ice immediately struck his face hard enough to sting. The wind nearly shoved him sideways as he fought toward the Freightliner. Hallen's truck engine was still running. Justin yanked the driver's side door open. Hallen looked up instantly. Justin had never seen him afraid before. The younger man's hands shook violently on the steering wheel. His blonde hair was damp with sweat despite the freezing cold outside. I couldn't stop it, Hallen said quickly. The trailer started fishtailing and... Hey! Justin grabbed his face firmly with both hands. Look at me. Hallen froze. You're okay, Justin said sharply. Stay with me. Breathe. For a second, the younger man just stared at him. Then his breathing finally slowed a little. Behind them, another truck crawled past carefully while the storm continued roaring over the mountain pass. Ice bounced violently across the pavement around their boots. We need to get off this road, Justin said. Hallen nodded weakly. Truck still drives. I think. Together, they managed to slowly guide both trucks another mile down the mountain before reaching a crowded emergency rest area packed with stranded drivers. Every parking spot was full. Truck engines rumbled through the freezing darkness while hail continued pounding the roofs like gunfire. Justin parked beside Hallen's Freightliner and climbed down again. The younger man sat motionless inside his cab staring at the steering wheel. Justin knocked once on the door. You good? Hallen let out a shaky laugh. Honestly? Not really. That answer sounded too real. Justin glanced toward the small roadside motel nearby. The parking lot was packed solid. Families and drivers crowded near the entrance, trying to get rooms. No chance we're getting a hotel tonight, Justin muttered. Hallen climbed down from the truck slowly, rubbing both hands together for warmth. Even under layers and gloves, Justin could still see the faint trembling in his fingers. Guess I'll sleep in my cab, Hallen said. Lightning flashed across the mountains behind them. Almost immediately, another brutal wave of hail crashed down over the trucks. Justin looked at the younger man again. You can stay in mine. Hallen blinked. You sure? It's warmer. For once, Hallen didn't joke or tease. He simply nodded quietly and followed Justin across the icy lot. Inside the Peterbilt cabin, the noise of the storm became duller, but somehow more intimate. Ice rattled against the roof overhead while the heater hummed softly through the small space. Justin tossed Hallen a dry sweatshirt from a storage compartment. "Put that on before you freeze." Hallen pulled off his soaked hoodie without thinking. Justin immediately looked away before his eyes lingered too long. The younger man had a strong athletic build beneath the damp shirt clinging to his chest. Tattoos curved along his forearm and shoulder. Water dripped slowly down his neck while he changed clothes. Justin focused very hard on opening a bottle of whiskey. "Here," he said, handing it over. Hallen took a long drink and coughed immediately. "Damn, trying to kill me. It's cheap whiskey." "That's normal." That finally earned a tired smile. For the next hour, they sat across from each other inside the dim cabin, while country music played quietly from the dashboard radio. Outside, stranded truckers shouted through the storm, while hail continued hammering the highway. Inside, it felt strangely calm. Hallen leaned back against the sleeper wall, holding the whiskey bottle loosely. "Thought I was going to lose that truck back there. You handled it better than most rookies would. Still almost drove us off a mountain." Justin shrugged slightly. "You asked for help. My father would call that weakness." Justin looked over at him carefully. "Your father sounds like an asshole." Hallen laughed once under his breath. "Yeah, he really was." The younger man stared down at the bottle for several seconds before speaking again. "He kicked me out when I was 19. Justin stayed quiet. Hallen swallowed hard. "Caught me with another guy." The cabin suddenly felt much smaller. "My dad used to say men like me ruined families," Hallen continued quietly. "After that night, I just left Texas and never really stopped moving." Justin stared at the dashboard lights, glowing green across the cabin. For years, he had trained himself never to talk about things like this out loud. But somehow Hallen made silence harder. "I spent most of my life hiding it," Justin admitted finally. Hallen looked up slowly. Justin kept his eyes forward. "Every time I got close to someone, I backed off before it became real." "Why?" Justin let out a dry laugh. "Look around. Trucking industry isn't exactly famous for open-minded people." Hallen smiled faintly at that. "Fair point." Another loud explosion of hail slammed against the roof. Hallen flinched hard. Justin noticed immediately. "You okay?" "Yeah." Hallen rubbed his hands together again. "Just hate storms." But 20 minutes later, Justin woke suddenly to rough breathing. The cabin was dark except for faint dashboard lights. Hallen sat upright, beside him breathing too fast. "Hallen!" The younger man pressed both hands against his face. "Sorry. Saw the... I'm fine." Justin recognized panic when he saw it. Without thinking, he reached over and grabbed Hallen's wrist gently. "Hey, slow down." Hallen tried breathing normally, but couldn't. Another violent burst of hail crashed overhead, and the younger man visibly shook. Justin moved closer automatically. "It's okay," he said quietly. "You're safe." For a second, Hallen resisted. Then suddenly he leaned forward and buried his face against Justin's chest like his body had simply given up fighting exhaustion and fear. Justin wrapped both arms around him instinctively. Hallen trembled for several minutes while Justin slowly rubbed circles across his back. Neither man spoke. The storm filled the silence for them. Eventually Hallen's breathing steadied, but neither of them moved apart. The younger man stayed curled against Justin, while exhaustion slowly pulled both of them toward sleep. Right before drifting off, Hallen spoke softly into the darkness. "What if someone saw us like this?" Justin stared at the ceiling for a long moment while hail rattled across the roof above them. Then quietly, almost too quietly to hear, he answered, "Then let them wonder." After the hailstorm in Colorado, something shifted between Justin and Hallen, even though neither of them said it out loud. Before that night, there had been two truckers crossing paths on the same highways. After that night, they started looking for each other. It happened naturally at first. Hallen would casually ask what route Justin was taking that week. Justin would pretend not to notice when Hallen somehow ended up stopping at the exact same fuel stations hours later. Their CB radios stayed active longer during overnight drives. Their dinners at truck stops became expected instead of accidental. Justin realized it one evening outside Salt Lake City when he parked at a crowded rest area and immediately felt disappointed not seeing the blue Freightliner anywhere nearby. Then, 20 minutes later, Hallen's truck rolled into the lot. Justin caught himself smiling before he could stop it. Hallen climbed down from the cab, holding 2 coffees. "You look way too happy to see me. You're imagining things." "Sure I am." The younger man handed him one of the coffees anyway. Justin hated how quickly Hallen had become part of his life. Not because he disliked it, because he liked it too much. Over the next few weeks, their routines started blending together. Hallen kept leaving little traces of himself inside Justin's Peterbilt. A lighter on the dashboard, snacks in the storage compartment, one of his hoodies tossed carelessly onto the sleeper bed. Justin never told him to stop. Some nights, they parked side by side and stayed awake talking through open windows for hours while cold wind rolled through the truck stop parking lots. Other nights, Hallen climbed into Justin's cabin with takeout bags and terrible jokes until both of them fell asleep halfway through old country songs playing on radio. For the first time in years, Justin started sleeping better. The loneliness that had followed him across thousands of highways no longer felt so heavy. One snowy evening in Wyoming, Hallen discovered Justin owned a tiny portable gas burner hidden in one of the cabinets. "No way," Hallen laughed. "You secretly cook? I heat can soup. Relax. That still counts." Hallen immediately climbed into the passenger seat, holding grocery bags from the truck stop market. "Move over. Tonight we're making actual food. Pretty sure truck stop parking lots aren't approved kitchens. Neither is whatever can garbage you eat every night." Justin watched him unpack eggs, bacon, bread, and coffee like he was setting up a 5-star restaurant instead of standing inside a cramped sleeper cabin. "You seriously carry all this around?" "I was a mechanic living alone before trucking," Hallen answered while heating the pan. "If I didn't learn to cook, I would have died." The smell of bacon slowly filled the cabin while snow drifted softly outside the windshield. Justin leaned against the seat, watching Hallen move around the tiny space comfortably, sleeves rolled up, blonde hair messy from the cold. It felt dangerously domestic. That realization unsettled him more than it should have. "You staring at me?" Hallen asked without turning around. "No, liar." Justin looked away immediately while Hallen laughed quietly to himself. Later that same night, they sat on the floor of the sleeper cabin eating grilled sandwiches while old music played softly from Justin's phone. Hallen nudged his shoulder lightly. 6 months ago, I thought trucking would be freedom. And now I think it's just loneliness with diesel fuel." Justin looked down at his coffee cup. "It's easier," he muttered. "No," Hallen said softly. "I don't think it does." That answer stayed in Justin's head long after Hallen climbed back into his own truck for the night. A few days later, their routes separated for almost the first time in weeks. Justin headed south toward Arizona while Hallen took a delivery into Montana. The silence inside Justin's cabin felt wrong immediately. Around midnight, his phone buzzed against the dashboard. A photo message. No text. Just a picture of the moon hanging above a dark highway somewhere in Montana. Justin stared at the image longer than necessary before finally taking a picture through his own windshield. "Same moon, different road." Hallen replied almost instantly. "Look at that. We're disgustingly romantic now." Justin shook his head while smiling despite himself. From then on, the moon photos became their thing, no matter how far apart their routes took them. Oregon, Nebraska, Texas, Utah. One of them would eventually send a picture of the night sky. No explanations needed. Then came Wyoming. The night, everything finally crossed the line. They had stopped at a nearly empty gas station outside Cheyenne after driving through freezing weather for almost 10 straight hours. Snow drifted lightly through the parking lot while neon lights buzzed overhead. Hallen stood beside the fuel pumps, rubbing warmth into his hands. "I swear this state exists purely to freeze people to death." Justin smirked slightly. "You complain in every state." Because every state sucks. They grabbed coffee inside and returned to Justin's truck afterward. Neither seemed in a hurry to leave. Inside the cabin, silence settled between them comfortably at first. Hallen sat sideways in the passenger seat, watching snow hit the windshield while Justin adjusted route paperwork. Then Hallen spoke quietly. "You ever think about stopping?" Justin looked over. "Stopping what?" "This." Hallen gestured vaguely toward the windshield. "The road. The constant moving. Sleeping alone every night." Justin leaned back slowly. "Used to. And now. Don't know how to do anything else." Hallen stared at him for several seconds. Then softer this time, "I think I stopped feeling alone after Colorado." Justin's chest tightened immediately. Neither of them looked away. The heater hummed softly through the cabin while snow continued falling outside under the gas station lights. Hallen swallowed hard before speaking again. "Tell me this isn't just loneliness." Justin felt every instinct inside him screaming to pull away. 20 years of hiding. 20 years of silence. 20 years convincing himself he didn't need anyone. But Hallen was looking at him with something too honest to ignore. Justin reached forward slowly and touched the side of Hallen's face. The younger man leaned into the touch instantly. That broke whatever control Justin still had left. He kissed him. Soft at first. Careful. Like both of them were afraid the moment might disappear if they moved too quickly. Hallen made a quiet sound against his mouth that nearly destroyed him. Then the kiss deepened slowly, naturally, years of loneliness pouring into something warm and desperate between them. When they finally pulled apart, neither man spoke for several seconds. Hallen rested his forehead against Justin's and laughed shakily. "Well, that definitely answered my question." Justin actually smiled. A real one this time. For a while, things felt almost perfect. Too perfect. That was probably why Justin noticed the looks starting before Hallen did. Truckers were observant people. An older driver named Rick began watching them too closely at truck stops. Conversations quieted whenever Justin and Hallen entered diners together. A few men smirked openly when they parked side by side overnight. Nothing direct. Nothing obvious. But enough. Justin ignored it. Hallen couldn't. One night, at a crowded rest stop outside Denver, Hallen walked into the bathroom and overheard two truckers laughing near the sinks. Those two always together now. Yeah, real cozy. Wouldn't surprise me these days. Then laughter. Hallen stayed frozen inside the stall listening while panic slowly climbed into his throat. For the rest of the night, he barely spoke. Justin noticed immediately once they got back into the truck. "You okay?" "Yeah." "That's not convincing." Hallen stared out the windshield. "You ever think about what happens if people figure it out?" Justin stayed quiet. "That's what I thought," Hallen muttered. Over the next week, the distance between them grew painfully fast. Hallen answered messages slower. Stopped joking. Started parking farther away at truck stops. Justin didn't know how to fix it, because part of him understood the fear completely. Then one morning outside Albuquerque, Justin woke up and realized Hallen's Freightliner wasn't parked beside him anymore. At first he assumed the younger man had left early for a delivery. But hours passed. No CB radio. No texts. Nothing. By evening, Justin's phone finally buzzed. One message. A photo of the moon above an empty highway. No caption. No explanation. Justin called immediately. Straight to voicemail. Again. Voicemail. Justin stared at the moon photo for almost an hour inside the silent cabin of his Peterbilt. Then finally whispered into the darkness. "Don't do this to me." But Hallen never replied. For the first few days after Hallen disappeared, Justin kept telling himself it was temporary. Maybe the younger man just needed space. Maybe he had picked up an emergency route. Maybe his phone had died somewhere in the mountains. But deep down, Justin already knew the truth. Hallen was running, and Justin understood exactly why. That was the worst part. The highways suddenly felt colder without the blue Freightliner beside him. Every truck stop looked wrong. Every late-night drive stretched longer than before. Justin kept reaching for the CB radio out of habit, only to remember nobody was waiting on the other channel anymore. 3 weeks passed like that. 3 long weeks of silence. Justin tried forcing himself back into routine. Deliveries, fuel stops, sleep, drive again. But now the loneliness felt heavier than it ever had before Hallen entered his life. Before, solitude had been normal. Safe, even. Now it felt like losing something vital. One night outside Flagstaff, Arizona, Justin parked alone at a rest area overlooking miles of empty highway. Rain hit the windshield softly while truck engines rumbled around him in the darkness. He reached into the passenger seat and froze. Hallen's gray hoodie still sat there. Justin picked it up slowly. The fabric still carried traces of engine oil, cold air, and the faint scent of Hallen's cologne. Without thinking, Justin pulled the hoodie against his chest and shut his eyes. That was when he finally broke. Years of pressure cracked open all at once. Justin bent forward in the driver's seat, covering his face with one hand while silent tears hit his knuckles. He couldn't remember the last time he had cried. Maybe decades. What terrified him wasn't losing Hallen. It was realizing how much he needed him. The next morning, Justin called dispatch and canceled his next route for the first time in almost 12 years. Then he started driving north. At first, he had no real plan. Only fragments from old conversations. Hallen once mentioning the Oregon coast. Talking about wanting quieter roads someday. Mentioning an old mechanic friend near Portland who repaired diesel engines. It wasn't much, but it was enough. Justin spent 4 days searching. Truck stops, repair garages, small coastal towns. Most people shook their heads when he showed Hallen's photo. A few recognized the blue Freightliner, but hadn't seen it recently. By the 5th day, Justin almost gave up. Rain poured heavily across the Oregon coast while he drove through a tiny town lined with old fishing docks and repair shops. Then he saw it. Bright blue Freightliner, parked beside a small garage near the highway. Justin's heart stopped. The truck looked different somehow. Cleaner. Still, like it hadn't moved in days. Justin parked across the street and sat motionless behind the wheel, staring through the rain-covered windshield. Then the garage door opened. Hallen stepped outside, carrying a toolbox. For a second, Justin forgot how to breathe. The younger man looked thinner, more tired. His blonde hair had grown slightly longer, and grease stained the sleeves of his sweatshirt. But it was him. Hallen looked up casually toward the highway, then froze. The toolbox slipped from his hand and hit the pavement loudly. Neither man moved. Rain hammered both trucks while traffic hissed past on wet roads between them. Finally, Justin opened his door and stepped out. Hallen stayed completely still as Justin crossed the street slowly. "You found me," Hallen said quietly once Justin stopped in front of him. Justin looked exhausted, eyes shadowed from days on the road. "Yeah." Hallen glanced away briefly. "You shouldn't have. Too late now." Silence settled between them, heavy and uncomfortable. Justin noticed Hallen wouldn't fully meet his eyes. That hurt more than he expected. "You just disappeared," Justin said finally. Hallen swallowed hard. "I thought it was the right thing." "For who?" "For you." Justin let out a dry laugh, filled with frustration. "You don't get to decide that for me." Hallen finally looked at him then. There was guilt written all over his face. "You didn't hear the things people were saying," Hallen muttered. "You didn't see the way they looked at us." "I did." "Then you know what could happen." Justin stepped closer slowly. "And running fixed it?" Hallen's jaw tightened. "I was trying to protect you." The words hit hard because Justin knew they were sincere. Rainwater dripped from Hallen's hair while he spoke again, quieter now. "I spent my whole life watching people turn cruel the second they found out who I was. My father, old friends, half the damn world." He shook his head. "I couldn't be the reason that happened to you too." Justin stared at him for several long seconds, then finally said the thing he had spent weeks trying to admit to himself. "Losing you hurt worse." Hallen looked stunned. Justin took another step forward. "I spent 20 years convincing myself being alone was easier," he said quietly. "No attachments, no risks, just roads and deliveries and silence." His voice roughened slightly. "Then you showed up." Hallen's eyes were already shining now. Justin continued anyway. "You made me start looking forward to things again. Meals. Conversations. Stupid moon photos. A faint broken smile crossed his face. Hell, I even started sleeping better because of you. Hallen laughed weakly through watery eyes. Justin shook his head slowly. When you disappeared, it felt like somebody ripped the life out of my truck. Rain continued pouring around them while neither man moved. I don't want to survive anymore. Hallen, Justin admitted softly. I want a life. A real one. And the only time I've wanted that was with you. That finally broke whatever walls Hallen still had left. The younger man covered his face briefly, shoulders shaking once before he stepped forward and grabbed Justin's jacket tightly in both fists. You scared the hell out of me, Hallen whispered. Justin wrapped both arms around him immediately. For several seconds, they simply held each other there in the rain beside the highway while trucks thundered past in the distance. Then Hallen pulled back just enough to look at him. You really drove across 4 states for me? Justin shrugged slightly. You kept my hoodie. Hallen laughed again, this time louder. Justin reached up slowly and touched his face. No more disappearing, he said. Hallen nodded immediately. Okay. No more deciding things for both of us. Okay. Justin studied him one more second before finally kissing him. Not hidden inside a dark truck cabin. Not rushed. Not afraid. Just open and certain. Hallen kissed him back instantly, one hand gripping the front of Justin's jacket, while rain soaked both of them completely. Somewhere behind them, the garage owner Wolf whistled loudly. Hallen jerked back in embarrassment. Justin surprised both of them by laughing. Actually laughing. The older mechanic leaned halfway out the garage doorway, holding a coffee mug. You two gonna stand in the rain flirting all afternoon, or are you coming inside? Hallen turned bright red. Justin looked calmer than he had in years. 6 months later, the old garage beside the highway looked completely different. The repair shop expanded first. Then came the diner beside it. Truckers passing through Oregon started stopping regularly for hot food, engine repairs, and strong coffee. Hallen worked the garage most days while Justin handled the diner during mornings before taking occasional freight jobs together with Hallen on shorter regional routes. People in town eventually got used to them. Some truckers still stared sometimes. Justin stopped caring. One evening, near closing time, Justin stood behind the diner counter refilling coffee while rain rolled softly against the windows outside. The wall behind the register was covered in framed moon photos from different highways across America. Texas, Nebraska, Colorado, Wyoming. Every lonely road that once separated them. Outside, a rookie trucker struggled badly, trying to reverse into the parking area. Justin immediately set down a coffee pot. He's turning too early. Hallen looked through the window and burst out laughing. Oh no. Justin was already heading toward the door when Hallen grabbed his wrist. Careful, Hallen warned with a grin. That's exactly how you got stuck with me. Justin looked at him for a second, then pulled him closer by the waist and kissed his forehead right there in the middle of the diner. No, Justin said softly. Best thing that ever happened to me. Outside, trucks continued rolling endlessly down the wet Oregon highway. But for the first time in both their lives, neither of them felt alone anymore. And maybe that's what love really is sometimes. Not fireworks or perfect timing, but finding one person willing to sit beside you through the long, lonely miles and finally making the road feel like home. Justin and Hallen spent years hiding from the world, only to discover that the life they wanted had been waiting for them at the end of the highway all along. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like the video and share your thoughts in the comments. And if you enjoy emotional gay romance stories like this one, subscribe to the channel and join us again for the next journey.